5 now, 3. 3 now, 3 and a quarter, 3 and a half, 375 now, 4, 4, now 45. Thought about it all done, all 3 sold, to you for 345. Come on. Okay, well, my name is Dale, and I am an auctioneer, but used to be. Now, I'm just an ex-con and an addict. Wow. You know, life changes and everything happens for a reason. You know, God's will, I don't know. All I know is I'm clean today. My clean date is April 22nd, 1997. So I recently turned 21, old enough to buy beer, old enough to buy weed, and mature enough to know I don't need to do it this time. Man, it's been a long road. You know, I'm 61, and I have 7,679 days clean today. And my goal is for my clean time to pass up my prison time, which is 9,088 days. That's a long time. But my clean time, I think 21 years, man, that's awesome. And then I look back and I say, wow, it says in the basic text that any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live, and that the message is hope, and the promise is freedom. And I claim that promise today. You know, I look forward to being free, and I look forward to a new life. And NA gives me everything. You know, and my story starts a long time ago. You know, I was raised in an area where everybody was native or white or, you know, ranch country, you know, up in the mountains, and I was both, you know, and I grew up with this chip on my shoulder, and I carried that chip on my shoulder into the military. And, you know, I dropped out of college when I was 20 and went in the Army thinking, man, with my education and my background and my condition, I was going to be the miracle of the U.S. Army, you know. And got in there, it didn't happen. Because first thing that happened when I got in the military was I thought, well, I'm a man, and, you know, men drink, and so I can drink, you know. And in the military, you can buy alcohol at 18. And so I drank, and when I drank, I got in trouble. And my morals changed, and I just being one big disaster after another, and couldn't understand. You know, I thought, it's them, it's not me. They just don't understand. You know, I'm just having fun. And when I got out of the Army, I quit drinking. Or at least I told myself I did. But about every 6 months, I would come up with a reason. You know, boss invited me to have a drink with him, or fellow employees, customers. Out on a date with a girlfriend, we're going to have a drink with dinner, and next thing I know, I'm drinking for 2 weeks, and my morals would start dropping, and I would quit again, and I thought, well, I've got this under control, you know. And this went on until the mid-'80s, and in the mid-'80s, you know, I became an auctioneer. I worked for a company that auctioned off farm equipment, construction equipment, and I bought and sold equipment, and repaired equipment, hauled it, and I thought I was doing great. We had a customer that would come in all the time, and this customer, he would buy junk. And I couldn't understand, you know, because this guy had money, and he would come and see me, and he would talk to me the day before the sale, and I would tell him what was coming up for sale, and the amazing deals that he could find, and he would come, and he would buy junk again. And then he came to me one day, and he told me that he had a nuisance abatement problem, and that if I helped him out, he would give me half of everything. And I thought, wow, you know, I went down there and I checked it out, and he had 2 acres, 14 feet deep, full of equipment. And I knew with my skills I could clean this stuff up and sell it, and I figured I'd make about $250,000 in a year, and I just jumped on it and quit my job. Went down there and started hauling equipment for about 8 months. And a lot of times when I was on the road hauling equipment, when I'd come back, a lot of stuff was stolen, and it seemed like it was my stuff that was getting stolen, not anything else. And it's like, you know, 14 feet deep of equipment. There's a lot better equipment than mine, and it just didn't make sense. And then one day, a bunch of bikers came in and they started loading equipment up, and I came up to try to find out what was going on, and found out that they own the equipment. That my partner was a laundryman for this motorcycle club. And after a lot of messed up conversations and arguments, I packed up and I left. But I had a lot of equipment in storage, so I opened up a welding shop, machine shop. I got 3 acres, and I sold the front acre because I didn't need frontage, and the front acre was worth more than the back too. And it was, people, for my kind of business, people know where you're at, and they come to you. And but it was also a prime spot for illegal activities, and that attracted this motorcycle club. And they would come in, and they told me that they were trying to force me to go back into business with this guy because it was my reputation that was selling equipment. And they told me that I didn't have consent to leave, and I didn't even know I worked for them. I didn't know I was in business with them. So they would come in, and they'd bust up my shop, and bust me up, and tell me that if I ever wanted anything in life, I'd have to come to them on my hands and knees. And this went on for a couple of years. And finally ended up losing my business. I went to work for a sawmill, and I cleaned up for a couple of months. You know, when I first opened my shop, you know, I would just buy a $20 bag and use it to complete contracts. So a $20 bag would last me for 2 weeks. And but when the bikers and stuff started coming in, I found out that I could get an 8-ball for $150, and I thought that's 6 months supply, and it was gone in 2 weeks. And from there, it was just on and running. And I didn't want the club to find me. Didn't want to find me asleep. And it got to the point that I had to put up signs. I had to take my signs down so that the customers wouldn't be at risk. And so I went to work for the sawmill. I was head millwright and doing well. My wife, yeah, she was an addict, but she was pregnant, and she was amazed at the money coming in, and she could go to the store and buy anything she wanted. And I thought, this is it, this is perfect. And then the guy, there was an accident on the job. The guy got pulled into a debarking machine and ripped his arm off and broke his jaw, and it became my job to save him. And I managed to do that, but he died in the hospital. And since he died, they fired me. And I went back out and back on drugs, dragging my wife around with me. And life was a mess again. You know, it just seemed like every time I would get up, I was back down, you know. And it was incredible, you know, that I could do all these things, but on drugs I was gone. I was a mess. I could do nothing. I would start things, but I had all this equipment. If I was on drugs, all I needed was a screwdriver, and I could tear anything up. But I found out that this laundryman was selling the property that had about $30,000 of my equipment on it that they'd ripped off from me. My wife was on me looking for money, and I went down there and confronted the guy and asked him to give me my property back. That you know, it's not going to increase the value of the sale. And of course, they just laughed at me. And he told me that he was going to Napa, and I knew that when he went to Napa, he was usually gone for 3-4 days at a time. And so I snuck back that night to get my equipment, and my wife followed me down there. Well, it turned out it was a trap, and he was waiting for me. And he threatened to kill my wife before my child could be born. And he sicked his dog on me, and got a Siberian Husky. It was a fairly good-sized dog. And he was trying to hit me with a mag flashlight, but he'd held on to the leash, so he was wide open. And every time he'd pull the flashlight back, I would kick him in the face. And he went over backward, hit his head, and he died. And I put him in a box and poured 4 gallons of muriatic acid on him. So I turned this pure Aryan black and tried to deliver him back to his club as a warning to leave me alone. And I got caught. And the county that it happened in said it was self-defense, but the county that the club was from decided to pick it up. And they tried me for capital murder. I mean, one county says self-defense, the next county wants to put me to death. And I just couldn't understand. I thought they should give me a medal, send me home. And when I was in the county jail, about once a month, the guards, they would chain my hands behind my back, chain my feet together, and chain my feet to my hands. And they would carry me down the hall, slamming me into the wall and kicking me. And then they'd put me in the sally port, kicking me back and forth, trying to get me to plead guilty. And we got to trial, and they couldn't get a jury that was going to convict me of killing the person that I killed. So I was acquitted of capital murder and acquitted of first degree. But they retried me for second degree, and they convicted me. I got sentenced to 15 to life, and well, 15 to life in those days meant forever because no lifers were getting out. And so I got to, when I got to prison, I'd been told for 2 years that when I got there, this motorcycle club was going to kill me. And I believed the guards, this was going to happen. So I got to San Quentin. When I got to San Quentin, I went there with a group of people from my jail, and so I felt pretty safe. And they took me to West Hall and gave me a card and said, go find your cell. And I went looking all over the place, couldn't find my cell. And I came back to the guards and told them I couldn't find it. And they're like, what, are you stupid? And it turned out I was supposed to be in the Carson section. So they walked me over there. And now I'm away from everybody that I knew. And they send me down this corridor by myself and tell me to go up the stairs. My cell's on the 5th floor. And this rickety set of stairs all welded up. And, where I come from, everybody's native or white. And I wasn't used to other races. And just about the time I got to the stairs, this great big black guy coming towards me. And so I stepped aside to let him go first. And he wouldn't go. And I'm like, oh man, now what do I do? So I walked up the stairs, this great big black guy behind me, and nothing happened, but I was scared, It's like I'd never been to prison before. And I get up there and I get to my cell, my heart's beating 90 miles an hour, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for being scared. And, I was in reception there for 45 days, and they sent me to Old Folsom. And I got to Old Folsom, and I had a plan. My plan was to be out of sight, Instead of using my name, I told everybody I was a gadget. And I figured nobody will know who I am. That's going to happen. I'll be fine. And my first day, I went to yard behind one building there, and the weight pile, and it was pouring down rain, and I'm freezing. And the guy came up beside me, and he stuck a shank in the guy's chest. And when he pulled it out, blood squirted on his thermal shirt. And he didn't want to get caught, so he took it off. And I looked at him and I said, you don't want it. There's a gunner on the rail, Mini 14. And he said he didn't want it. And I just squatted down next to that guy and I washed his shirt out. And I didn't care about the gunner. I wanted a shirt. And I rolled it up and I put it inside my shirt. And when I went in, everybody's come up to me telling me you're crazy. And I'm telling them, I'm doing life. What are they going to do to me? I just don't care. And next time I came to the yard, I had a warm shirt and a reputation. Everybody was saying, don't mess with this guy. You don't mess with somebody who doesn't care. And I thought, man, everything's perfect. I'm doing fine. I'd go to the weight pile every day, work out, and just do the rest of my time that way. And after a couple of months, they moved this great big guy in my cell, and this guy went through my paperwork while I was out on the yard and found out that I killed somebody from this motorcycle club. And when I came back in, he told me, we need to talk. And he told me that if I didn't put out, he was going to tell this club about what I was in for. And I told him, I'll give you the best time of your life, but when I'm done, I'll slice both of our throats because I just don't care. And he told me, you don't need to go there. And I told him, you already did. And so he decided to back off, leave me alone. But as soon as they opened the yard, I grabbed my paperwork and I went to the yard and I found the biggest biker I could find from that club, and I went up to him and told him, we need to talk. And he says, what's up, Dale? I'm like, how do you know who I am? I was amazed that this guy could possibly know who I was. And I thought I'd been invisible. And he told me, we knew you was coming here before you did, So I explained to him what was going on, and He went over to the hobby shop and jerked my celly up off his chair and told him to roll it up, right in front of the guards. And when I got back to my cell, this guy was gone, and I didn't have any problems. I had made a deal with him that I wouldn't mention the name of his club, and they would leave me alone. That they knew it was personal; it had nothing to do with them. And I started living off my reputation for beating this big biker up. And I was beating up child molesters and rapists and people that didn't pay their drug debts. And I was being supplied in drugs. And I continued that way up until 97. And I lived with my cellie. I got switched to Tracy, DVI. And at DVI, my cellie that came to prison in 67 for murder, and he picked up 3 more murders in prison. So he was a shot caller. And so if he had drugs, I had drugs. And life couldn't be better. I thought, I've got it made. Because, no hope of getting out, so why not just stay wasted? But every year for my son's birthday, I would be clean. I never used on April 22nd because my son's birthday was April 23rd. And on April 22nd, 1997, I was working in a machine shop. They had me cutting screens off the second floor windows, and I didn't have a ladder. So I fell 10 feet, and I landed on my face, and my head went back and hit my spine, and my brain bounced off my skull, and I was messed up. I was paralyzed on the left-hand side, and that meant people aren't going to give me drugs to beat people up. And I couldn't afford drugs. It didn't matter if I was crippled up or not. If you're in debt, you pay your debts in there. And nobody gets by. And at first, I had people come up offering me drugs with the pain, my friends and stuff, and I turned them down because I knew that if I didn't quit then, that I wouldn't be able to quit. And so I quit, but I didn't have a program. I didn't know about NA, and I'd heard about NA after I quit, but NA was on the second floor, and there's no elevator, and I had no way to get there. And all the people I knew that went to NA were the dealers on the yard. They'd go to NA and put on a show and come back. And that was DVI. That wasn't your typical prisons, but that was DVI. And so I got miserable. My son had been taken away and adopted, and my mother died, and I'm doing life with no hope and can't walk. And I became depressed. The more depressed I got, full of self-pity, I drove people away, and the more I drove people away, the more depressed I became. And I went to work in the psych department, and I was the lead psych clerk, and nobody knew I had a problem. I worked for 27 psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers, and I just played it off. I did my job and laughed appropriately, and they misdiagnosed me thinking I had seizures, so they gave me a prescription for Dilantin, and I saved them up and took 34 of them and spent 5 days in ICU. And when I got out of ICU, they shipped me to CMC, California Men's Colony. And the CDC's idea of treatment for depression is to put you in a little room with no clothes, no heat, no blanket, sleeping on a sheet of steel, no mattress. God, I was hurting. And most people are there for 2 days, but since I worked in the psych department and nobody knew I had a problem, they were worried about me. And so every day they would take me to this team of psychiatrists, and every day I would tell them I don't care, and they'd just send me back to my cell. And this went on for 12 weeks. And finally, after 12 weeks, I told the chief psychiatrist that I thought he was a queen with grandiose delusions of being a man. And if they wanted to see me naked for the rest of my life, I could do that. And they brought me back the next day and told me that was the most emotion they got out of me in 12 weeks, and that they was going to give me a chance and let me back on the line. They said, how are we going to know you have a problem? And I told them, you could ask, common sense. These are psychologists and psychiatrists. They don't know that you can ask, but they work for CDC. So I got back on the line, and I met this guy. His name was Dave, man. I'll never forget you, but I always called him 5, and I called him 5 because fifth tradition is to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. And even though I wasn't using, I was an addict. I was an addict who still suffered because I didn't have a program. I didn't have a life. And I didn't care much. And so he invited me to these meetings, and I started going. And I thought, with my education and my background and everything, that I was going to be the savior for NA, that I would just tell people how to quit using, just make up your mind and quit. And NA wouldn't be needed anymore. I was just going to save everybody. And that soon I would be the emperor of the World Service Office, and NA would be ran my way. And I got to the program, and everybody there were lifers. They were murderers just like me, and they didn't want to hear my story. They didn't care what I knew. They didn't care how smart I thought I was. All they cared is that what I was learning about myself and what I intended to do about it, and that I needed to listen. It's like, man, don't you know who I think I am? It's like, don't you realize how important I am? And they didn't care, because I was an addict, and as an addict, everything was about me. And so when I started going to these meetings, I found out that, there's 400 people on the list, and so 200 people go one week and 200 people go the next week. And I found out that if I was of service, I could go every week. And so I became of service. I became the greeter, and I greeted everybody and gave them a hug when they came in, and got to know people. And I was being of service, and people were recognizing me. And I soon started sponsoring people, and I became a teacher's aide and a tutor and educator for infectious disease control, and volunteering all my time to helping people. And people were helping me. The meetings were like 1,200 yards away, and people would hold me up so that I could get to the meeting, and they'd hold me up all the way back and get me to my cell. And, in 1 2-year period, I helped over 36 people get their GEDs by tutoring them. And in 2002, I met my sponsor, and I became his sponsor at the time. He couldn't read. He basically had read like the second grade level and couldn't write. And every night we'd go to the yard. I moved him into my cell, and every night we'd go to the yard and reading an easy reader book over the summer. And it took him all summer long to read one easy reader book. And if he made a mistake, I made him start at the beginning of the page. And after 3 years of working with him, he got his GED. And he was so proud of himself. And in 2008, he paroled. And when he paroled, I told him, we're switching places. And he's like, you have more time than me. How can I be your sponsor? And I told him, it's not about the time. It's about, you're going to be out there going to programs, learning in the real world. And I'm going to need that when I get out. You're going to have something to offer me. And so it's what you have to offer. You have a lot more to offer from out there than I do in here. He took the position. He took the role as my sponsor. And he would send me packages and write to me and let me call him. And in 2009, I was too messed up to continue at CMC, because they didn't allow wheelchairs there. And so they switched me to Pleasant Valley. And in 2012, I got a date. And I was so amazed, that I was overwhelmed. It was like me getting out, and then the governor took it. And because I had a program, it didn't matter that the governor took it, because I had freedom. I had freedom in there because I made a choice every day of what attitude I was going to have, and my attitude was going to be take advantage of everything this life has to offer and have fun, enjoy life. And I chose to enjoy life in there. And so in 2014, they gave me another date, because I didn't go back out using. I didn't react overreacted in taking my date away. And this time they let me keep my date. So February 17th, 2015, they let me out, and my sponsor, he was there to pick me up. I was like, freedom. But, I was going to a transitional home, and man, this transitional home had sent me all kinds of paperwork and telling me they had groups from 8 in the morning till 8:30 at night and all these rules, and I was thinking, man, this is worse than prison. Because there's no emotion on paper, all I seen was the rules. But my sponsor, he picked me up, he took me to breakfast, and his wife was with us at breakfast, and he took me to a meeting, my first outside meeting. And then he took me home, to his home, and I met his family, and him and his wife took me to Los Angeles. And when I got to Los Angeles, to this transitional home, I was ready to get locked up, ready to be just like prison, or worse than prison again. And I walked in, and there's the counselor working that night was a lesbian with great big old arms, and she came up and she wrapped her arms around me and she said, "Welcome home, Bill." I was like, wow, I got a hug, and I got my name back. I was no longer inmate or lozier or H20362. I was Dale again, and somebody hugged me. They took family visiting away in '96, and in prison, staff don't touch you. I was one of them people unfit to be touched, for the last 18 years. And I cherished that hug. That hug was my door to freedom. It opened this world up to me. This woman's in NA, and she gave me one of them loving NA hugs. It just says, "Your family, bud," And I found NA at that moment was everything that I had been promised it would be when I got out. And so I started getting passes to go to meetings, and as soon as I got out of the transitional home, I made a home group and took a commitment. I was a CHIP person, and that was a year commitment, and it meant that I was able to be of service. I was still in my wheelchair, and I was taking buses and trains to get there, and I would work it out with the transitional home to let me leave early because of my condition, but which means I could get there early. I would get there, I'd go to the 7-Eleven, and I would buy a pizza and bring it back and share it with everybody before the meeting. And I had friends that would come with me, and they would do the same. And, the VA came through for me and helped me to get an apartment. I thought when I got out that I would be living in one of these little studio apartments and with 3-4 guys and no place to sleep. And got a beautiful apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment overlooking the park, and pay $230 a month. And it's like life is happening. It's happening because I have a program. I'm clean today, and people, I go in. I don't feel entitled. I feel grateful, and doors open. And when doors open, I ask where the next door is, and those doors open because people care. When I got out, I was afraid of getting out because in prison, when I had problems, everybody knew me and they helped me. If I fell out of my wheelchair, they put me back in, and I'm like, who's going to help me out here? And I don't have to worry about that, And when my son was taken away in prison, I tattooed his social security number on my chest. And out here, they changed his name and everything, but I found him. I found him because I was dedicated. I found out that he was at High Desert State Prison, and because I hadn't been there to be a father, like so many people in the program, growing up without a father, my son grew up without a father, no identity. So he grew up thinking that he was Mexican, and he joined a gang. From the time he was 12 until the time he was 20, now 28, he's only had like a year and a half of freedom, and he's going to get out in 2001. And when he gets out, he's coming to LA, and he wants me to adopt him. He wants his name back, and he wants me to be his dad again. Yeah. I'm a convicted murderer and an addict, and he wants me to be his dad. And he wants me to be his dad because I have a program, I have a life, and I have something to offer today. I didn't think I would ever have anything to offer. You know, it was just so amazing. And, you know, today I'm the layout design editor for the San Fernando Valley NA Never Alone newsletter. And May 6th, I'm supposed to become the chairman in just a couple of days. And I'm of service. I go to bed at night. My phone rings at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I put a smile on my face and I answer the phone because I want my attitude to be right. I want people to hear that there's a caring voice on the other end of the phone, because I want to give people what this program has given me. I want to show them that there's a caring person here to help them, and that I will talk to them as long as they need to talk to, and if they need me to get there, I'll find a way, you know. And, you know, after about a year of being out, I switched to a walker, and this last year I've been without my walker. You know, I still twist up, I still fall down. Somebody pats my back, I'm not expecting it. I just fall down, that's it. You know, and I get back up again. And just like nothing ever happened, because I love this life. I love the fact that I'm someplace where people love me, they care about me. People seem excited to see me, you know. I'm a convicted murderer, and sometimes inside I don't even feel like I'm human, but people love me anyway. You know, people care about me, and I make a difference in people's lives. You know, I volunteer with a program to help inmates in the daytime, and I teach people how to speak to the board, lifers like me, so they have a chance to get out. And they send me 30, 40 pages of their life story, and I critique it, and I write back to them. I tell them what changes I believe they need to make, and what programs they should go through, and I keep working with them until I think they're ready to go to board and have a chance to get free. And I help about 500 inmates a year have that opportunity that I have today, to have freedom, to have life, to have love in their hearts, because there's a world out here that loves me. I have a family today, and that family is called Narcotics Anonymous, you know. And no matter where I go, I know there's family waiting for me, you know. I can call NA and anywhere and say, I'm getting off a bus. Can somebody be there to get me, to help me get to a meeting? And somebody will be there, you know. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, the love of this family. It's only available because it's people dedicated to change, because we honor that fifth tradition to help the addict who still suffers, and we cherish those who are being of service doing that. You know, this program has given me a life, you know, a life I never imagined possible. I mean, when I went to prison, the governor said the only lifers getting out were getting out in a pine box. There was no hope for a guy like me. And NA said there was hope. That's the message. There's hope. And they promised freedom, and they gave me that freedom. They gave me the freedom while I was inside, and they reassured my freedom when I've gotten out. I mean, no matter what. I mean, I'm a convicted murderer. I have life parole. If somebody makes an accusation, I don't have to be proven guilty. I go back to prison for life, and I don't worry about that. I don't have to worry about that, because my whole world is NA, and the people in this program all want the best for me. I have no fear of ever going back. My parole officer comes, he sits down in a chair, and he's like my best friend, because instead of looking at him as as a cop or a guard or something. I look at him as the guy who's out here to help me make it. You know, and he will do that. You know, if I need help, he will research it. He will give me advice. And if the help I need is to send me back to prison, he'll do that too. And I know that, and I don't give him a reason. You know, I have my basic text, I have my Living Clean book, and I have my guiding principles, and I don't just read those books, I internalize them, and I share with my friends, and they share back with me what they think it means, and we have a rapport. And I have this life, and it's called Narcotics Anonymous, and it's called family. You know, when I see somebody in NA, they are family. They're closer to me than my real family ever was. This program offers me hope. That's the message. And they promise me freedom, and I claim that freedom every day of my life. And I look forward to tomorrow. You know? And life can only get better as long as I work the program. And if you work the program, if you come to a meeting, you introduce yourself, and you take phone numbers, and when you take a phone number, you go home and you call that number, man. Call that person and say, I want help, I'm very serious about my program, and I look forward to being at the next meeting. Trust me, when you have a problem because you've made that initial phone call, people are going to say, yeah, this person is really interested, and they're going to be out there, they're going to be there to help you. They're going to say, yeah, this person I know, I'm going to feel good about helping, and they're going to be there for you. You know, so don't just fill your phone with numbers. Use them. Use the numbers. Read the books. Internalize the program. Make sure you have a basic text that when there's nobody else there, you have that to fall back on. Sit down and just start reading. Open it anywhere. Start reading. And get a meeting directory. The meeting directory tells you where all the local meetings are. On the back of the meeting directory, there's instant help phone numbers you can call and say, I need help. And you open the middle of the meeting directories, and almost every meeting directory has committee chairman's phone numbers, and you can be of service. And service is the best way to stay clean because it gets you out of the you, and you start caring about other people. Because because it's all about me. So when you get away from me, you don't have that desire to use. And these committee chairmen, they always need people, and if they don't need people, they'll create a position for you because they know the value of having another trusted servant on their committee, and they know the value of service and staying clean. And that's the secret of NA. The secret of staying clean is being of service. It's getting away from who you are into being who we are. The family. Narcotics Anonymous. Thank you.